Hello everyone, Carrie here with the Unicorn Company, and today we're finally covering Southern Assault as far as covering the tournament itself. And today, so first of all, I had recorded this previously and the audio came out horribly. So that is why we have it's been a little while. And of course, also the week has kind of been crazy, and I have a story about the Catalyst prices for all of their miniatures, which I need to finish up. And of course, that changed because of current events and what's probably going to happen as far as tariffs and how that's going to affect pricing and everything. So things have been a little chaotic lately. That being said, I want to go ahead and talk about Southern Assault. Now, first of all, if you're unfamiliar, Southern Assault is a 2-day tournament that is run by Fortress Miniatures and Games in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And this is the 4th year that it's been run. And quite frankly, it was really awesome to see everybody. They had 120 players this year, which I think once again makes it the largest Alpha Strike event in the country, if not the world. And I wanted to go ahead and we're going to talk about all that. So first of all, the tournament schedule: Saturday, doors open at 7:30 a.m. Game 1 starts at 8:30. We should be out of the building by 6:30. I want to say we were roughly about there this year. And then on Sunday, games start at 9:30 and we should be out by 3. The award ceremony is at 3 and we should be out after that. I want to say it ran a little bit later than that. I want to say we were out probably about like 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock. But, you know, that's just sort of how it works. Now, first of all, I do want to say that Southern Assault does have a test as part of the tournament. You heard me right. It's a single-page, 15-question test with a bonus question. And quite frankly, it's pretty straightforward. It is an open book test, so if you need to look in the Alpha Strike rulebook for something, you are able to. And I think it's probably one of the easier things. Like, I know most of this off the top of my head, like the 5 great houses, 4 clans that attacked in 52, how many battle armored troopers are in a star, what do you call a formation that contains 5 mechs and 5 points of elementals, stuff like that. And then of course we actually get to the scenarios. Now before I do that, I want to go ahead, I'm going to mention what I ran. There is a video which should have a little pop-up here, somewhere around here, that's going to talk about what I was going to run. But let's go ahead and just take a quick look at it again so we're familiar with what's going on. Alright, so I decided to call my force Task Force Foxicorn, and it consists of Fox Patrol, a Uller B, a Locust 6M, a Quick Draw 9G, a Griffin 3RG, and a Marauder 2R, plus 2 units from Unicorn Company, these being a Charger C and a Hunchback C. Also, just for the fun of it, I decided to run a list that was using all miniatures from before the current plastics existed. And all of them except for the Charger are plastics that have come in various FASA products and a Catalyst product. It might have been a Fan Pro product. So all of them were old sculpts that came in plastic except the Charger, which I don't think has ever come in plastic before the Mercenaries Kickstarter. So let's go ahead and look at round 1. Round 1 is Fight. Now, Fight is a stand-up fight scenario where you both deploy, I want to say, 6 inches in from the table edge, and you essentially beat each other senseless. Now, there are a few bonus point modifiers on it. If you do a melee attack, you get 2 extra points. If your smallest point unit destroys a unit, you get a point. If you destroy the opponent's highest point unit, you get a point, and if during the battle you get a rear shot, you get a point. Also, if your highest point unit killed 3 or more units, you get 3 points, and if you destroyed more than half the opponent's points, you get 2. So it's a pretty straightforward stand-up fight and see who comes out doing better than the other. Now, for round 1, my opponent was running a Horned Owl at skill 3, a Piranha at skill 3, a Behemoth, well, Stone Rhino at skill 3, that way we don't get confused with the tank, a Kodiak at skill 3, a Executioner A at skill 2, and Nova H at skill 3, and a Mongrel Prime at skill 4. So this put them right at about 374 points. And quite frankly, the game, this was where I knew I was going to have a rough time through the whole tournament. And the reason I say that is while I was able to win and the majority of my forces survived the fight, they took a beating. And quite frankly, the Charger C was the hero of the show simply because for some reason it had never been shot until my opponent was down to just the Kodiak and the Stone Rhino, which the Charger then proceeded to single-handedly go in and just take care of business. Of course, the biggest thing with the Charger was the fact that it has a better maneuverability, I guess is the best way to put it. It can get around the opponent quite well, and it was able to do this with both mechs, especially because they were not in positions to support each other, which is a big thing. You want to make sure that you can support yourself or support your own units during the game, simply because if you don't, they can get isolated and destroyed. So round 1 I did win, but of course the thing is, it was, I guess you could say, a Pyrrhic victory. Simply because of the fact that there was so much work in making that win happen, and I knew after that this was going to be a rough ride. So after round 1, we ended up going to scenario 2, which is, did I hear you say supplies? Now, this is a 5 objective scenario with one essentially in each quarter, and one in the middle of the table. Last year, I want to say this was a later round event, and quite frankly, this was bad. So in this scenario, my opponent was running a slightly larger force, a Albatross 4U at skill 3, a Orion ON1 MD at skill 3, a Partisan Air Defense Tank LRM configuration or variant at skill 2, a Charger 1A1 at skill 3, a Anvil 3R at skill 3, a Wraith TR1 at skill 3, a Raven 4LC at skill 3, a Dasher D at skill 3, and a Phalanx Battle Armor, a squad of 4 units at skill 3. The fact that so at the beginning I was able to push in the center, I was able to get some points early. Now, the problem was I was outnumbered, and quite frankly, between that and also just cover not being the best of things near the middle of the table, I found myself constantly having to, I don't know how to put it, constantly having to deal with attrition, which was my biggest enemy during the entire event. And quite frankly, like if you look at my scores on the bottom, you can see how by turn 5 it had attrited down to scoring 1 point per turn. And the mech that was able to do that was the Marauder, which you will find a common theme throughout this. The Marauder survived almost every scenario, a lot of times coming out as the lone survivor. So I did lose that scenario, and I lost it pretty roughly. But then we went to round 3. And for round 3, we have the scenario Strategic Points. And Strategic Points is your classic 3 objective scenario game. Now, I played this game against Ben, who was playing a Fedsons force that consisted of a Wolverine 10R, a Rattlesnake JR731, a Spectre 5S, 2 Hawkmoth 2 gunships, 2 Balak Strike VTOLs hybrid version, 2 Manticore heavy tanks, rotary autocannon version, and 2 Demolisher heavy tanks clan version. Everything in his list was skill 4. Now, thinking about this, talking about it, that whole thing I brought up with the last scenario of being outnumbered, this was even worse. I have 7 units, they have 11. That's almost 1.5 to 1. It was rough. And what I found myself having to deal with is just getting swarmed. Mainly the VTOLs, which surprisingly the VTOLs were really hard to take care of. They had a tendency, no matter where you moved, they're getting behind you, they're going to give you a rough day. And I applaud him. He did an amazing job. And once again, by, I want to say turn 5, the only mech left alive was the Marauder through some miracle. And yeah, he took a full win, and I ended up basically in a position in that game where it was like, okay, I've lost 2 in a row. I'm pretty much here for fun at this point, which that's fine, you know. And quite frankly, taking Fox Patrol with some added stuff. It's not a list built optimized for competitive games. It's what can I do to Fox Patrol to make it at least a decent fight. And you know, quite frankly, it was a good fun game. I really enjoyed it, but in the end, yeah, I just did not have the staying power that I needed in order to win that game. Now, round four, let me go over my opponent's list real quick, and then we're going to talk about, well, round 4. So my opponent had an Atlas 7S, a Griffin 1DS, a Rifleman 5M. Oh, and I should give you skills. So skills are so far 3 for the Atlas, 4 for the Griffin, 2 for the Rifleman, a R63 Urban Mech at skill 3, a Catapult C4C at skill 4, a Timberwolf S at skill 4, a Marauder 5M at skill 2, 2 squads of Grey Death Legion standard suits at skill 4, 2 squads of Grey Death Infiltrator suits with Fire Drakes. Oh, sorry, the standard suits are SRM. Fire Drakes for the Infiltrators, also at skill 4, and 2 Scorpion Light Tanks MRM configuration or variant at skill 4. So overall, the force is interesting. I think the points on the Mad Cat, the Marauder and the Rifleman could have been allocated better elsewhere as far as the skill points, but that's, you know, it is what it is. Now, first of all, I want to say that my opponent was having some issues that day, and we decided to just go ahead and call the game a draw because he was having some issues, and I really do not want to be that person where, you know, if it's a gameplay thing, it's one thing, but if it's like outside of that, like what was going on, I don't want to go because of some kind of personal issue or some kind of, you know, something else and say, hey, my opponent can't play, so I would like to get all the points, please. Which, like I said, I understand if it's a gameplay thing where it's like, okay, I'm quitting this game. I'm done. And which I did last year, actually. I went, I told my opponent, I was like, look, I just can't keep going. This game is a foregone conclusion at this point. And there is absolutely no fun to be had in just getting beaten up in a corner, which is essentially what had happened to me. I had 1 unit left. It was really beefy, and I was just getting wailed on by everything else. And it was just like, you know what? We're at the point where I can't change the outcome of this. So, yeah. But in this situation, it's like, yeah, no, I can't go and be like, you know, I would really like those points because it would have made me look better in the standings. But at the same time, it's just not the right thing to do. So my opponent was awesome, and we did talk and stuff, and it was interesting getting their view on everything, and, you know, on the tournament and stuff like that, and also on this scenario. So this scenario, in round 4 is called Gridiron Titans. And this has an entire page of rules that was given to us on Friday. So when you first showed up, you're doing your, hey, I'm here, you get your swag bag. This was part of that. And the reason this was part of that is because of mech football. So this is the rules. I'm just going to go through them real quick. Starting at 1, all attacks and rules occur as normal for standard Southern Assault rules pack. Okay. 2, destroying a unit has no effect on the points value for victory. Units are not destroyed when a unit goes internal structure and has received 1 or more pips of damage to structure. It is knocked out and moved off the table at the end of the turn. Unit will respawn after 1 full turn to the player's table edge and enter as a reserve. Alright. I don't know if I like that because I know, so a lot of more modern units have like 3 or 4 structure, 5 structures, stuff like that. I was running units that had like 6 structure, especially that Marauder and that Griffin. And I think the Griffin had 5. I think the Griffin had like 5 structure. The Marauder had 6 structure. They were beefy units, and that was kind of the whole point of taking them, is they're beefy units, and it sort of gets rid of that beefiness. Kicking and throwing ranges are 3 times the size of the unit in inches. An assault mech would have a range of 12, medium mech would be 6, so forth and so on. Next up, declare 1 unit to be your safety. The safety has 360-degree field of fire and is your only unit that can enter the scoring zone you're defending. The safety is the only unit that can shoot an enemy unit in their scoring zone attempting to score. So this is something that you find yourself in a position where it's like, okay, what do I put in there? Now, mind you, there are bonus points for not taking your heaviest, I think it's heaviest unit? Or highest point unit. Yeah, your highest point unit. There are points for not taking your highest point unit, but of course, you know, it's one of those like catch-22s. Let's see, where were we? Okay, here we are. Any mech or ground vehicle can start the game in possession of the ball. VTOLs cannot interact with the ball. So my previous opponent from round 4 now found themselves in a situation where half their force was pointless, which really sucks for them. Only 1 unit attempting to score may be in their score zone at a time. The unit may only be fired upon by the safety while in the score zone. That's sort of covered in the other one about safeties and who can attack what's in the score zone. Infantry units cannot move or take action with the ball. They can take possession of the ball, affecting other units' chance to interact with it. Okay, so infantry can act like a foil, but not really much else there. There are 2 balls in play during the game, 1 for each side. You are playing offense and defense. You can only score with your ball. So it's rugby going both ways at the same time. There can be 2 total ball-related actions per turn per team. You can have 2 actions on yours, or 1 on yours, 1 on your opponent's, or 2 on the opponent's. So they're referring to actions taken towards a ball in play. So you can either have 2 actions on your own in-play ball, or you can take 1 action on your in-play ball, 1 action on your opponent's in-play ball, or 2 actions on your opponent's in-play ball. But you never get more than 2 actions per turn. Walking, running, catching, sprinting are not an action. Kicking, throwing, picking up are an action. This will come in here in a minute. Any mech or vehicle sprinting may not take any actions for that turn with the ball. Actions with the ball can only occur in the movement phase at the beginning or end of your unit's movement, i.e. you pick up the ball, run forward at the end of the movement, you then throw the ball to another unit. That would be your 2 actions for the turn, but the other unit may catch the ball at the beginning of its movement and then move. Moving and catching are not actions. Throwing, catching, kicking, picking up require a skill test with a modifier of +2. So if you have a skill 3, in order to throw or to catch or anything like that, it is your skill +2. you can catch a ball that has been thrown or kicked, you must declare the action. So catching's not an action, which I think is interesting, but they refer to it as an action. I would reword that slightly so people do not take that the wrong way. You can shoot and take an action in the same turn. Okay. If you run into the score zone, catch or pick up a ball in the score zone and have possession of the ball at the end of the turn, you score 7 points. You can kick or throw a ball through the field goal for 3 points. Once a unit scores, it is moved off the field and respawns after 1 full turn in reserve. It enters as reserve. We'll get to that in a minute. Any unit hit by a melee attack automatically fumbles the ball. It scatters d6 inches using the artillery scatter. North is directly away from the direction of the attack, or the attacker. Artillery cannot be fired into your own end zone. Artillery can target the ball ground around the ball and cause it to scatter d6 inches per the rules. Mulligan. 2 times a game you may call your ball back to your deployment zone. This can occur at the end of a turn, even if it's in control of the enemy, your own units, or on the ground. The ball cannot go off the map. It will scatter back into play at the point it would leave the board. Highest score wins. Okay, so simple enough, I guess. It's pretty complicated, actually. Let's see, where did I want to touch on real quick here? So it's kind of interesting. So let's look at the actual rules for the scenario. Set up the terrain as fixed. Clear any questions of impassable, height, cover, or terrain effects before the game. The game lasts 2 hours or 8 turns. Deployment. Initiative is rolled. The winner chooses side, deploys units first. Deployment is 6 inches in from the table side. Any one of the 4 sides may be chosen. The opponent then deploys the unit on the opposite side. Alternate deployment. Roll for initiative to start as normal. Scoring zone is a 12-inch by 3-inch area. Field goal is 4 inches by 3 inches, which is centered in the goal, and placed back at the back edge of the opponent's deployment area. Points are awarded based on scoring drives. Scoring unit in the score zone with a ball in hand earns 7 points. A ball thrown or kicked through a field goal earns 3. At the end of the game, calculate the score. Calculate the difference in points scored to determine your victory points per the scale below. Now, what's interesting is they don't mention where your ball goes after you score. If it gets removed with that unit, and it just comes back with that unit, or what happens, which is especially interesting given the how that works with the ball itself. Like, where does it go? Does it go back to does it go to the center of the field? Does it go to your end zone? Is it back to where you are, your deployment zone? How does that work? So that does need to be cleared up, which I think would not be a bad thing. Also, the scoring it's interesting. I feel like I would like to see some other stuff in here as far as how, like, I don't know how to put it. Like, for example, you can walk an assault mech into the scoring area, and then you can take a light mech and do a drive-by with the ball and just toss it in. The mech that goes away is the one that has the hardest time moving the ball. If the ball doesn't come back to your side or whatever, then I'm assuming it comes back with the other mech. If it does come back automatically, like to your side, then if your units are fast enough, you can run back over, grab the ball, and make a beeline for the goal to get 2 scores in a row. Also, the other thing is, the game rules seem to say, yeah, if you win by points, you win, but it's a margin of victory win. So you compare your scores, and the difference is how much you gain as far as points. It's not a straight win-loss. Alright, so overall, like I said, that was a very interesting and complicated scenario. That's probably taking up most of the time in this recording. The next one we have is scenario 5, which is the one I like to refer to as Escape from LA. Now, this one is essentially you have 2 objectives on the table. Each of those has 2 objectives next to it. They are off the center line towards you by 4 inches on one side and to your opponent on the other. This is a interesting scenario. They did have to point out to the people playing that if you chose to use the sides nearest the objectives, you had to rotate the entire, you had to rotate everything 90 degrees, so the objectives are once again farther away from the players. Because apparently that was something that came up, and somebody was going to try to do that to get themselves a possible win. Cheesy, don't do that. So anyway, we have the extraction scenario here, and I'm trying to pull up my opponent's forces for round 5. Here we are. All right. So this was one of the best games I played, and my opponent brought a Mad Cat S, a Linebacker D, a Gargoyle C, a Vulture F, a Thor H, an Enyo Strike Tank, I'm quite stuffy, it's hard to talk, a Hellbringer D, an Epona Pursuit Tank E, a Donar Assault Helicopter, and a squad of Elemental Battle Armor Flamers. So that's my opponent's overall force. And give me a second, let's see what I can do about my nose here. Okay, so a little bit of water, and hopefully it's going to help. So anyway, as far as this scenario goes, I set up to where I was looking at the Charger and Quick Draw near the objective closest to me. They could go in, grab the 2 people, and get out before anybody got there. On the other side of the table, over to my right, I had the Locust there with the rest of my forces. The idea was the Quick Draw and Charger would grab 2 people, the Locust would hopefully get there and grab a 3rd person, all on turn 1. That way I could run them back to my side of the table, and I would at least force a draw, if nothing else, and you check to see who has the actual governor out of the 4 objectives. And depending on that, then somebody gets bonus points. So it's like, maybe I can force a draw with a possible win condition. Well, that was the only way I could win the scenario. There's no other way. That turned out to be not what was going to happen today. So the Quick Draw got blown up, the Locust got blown up, the Charger grabbed its objective. Charger made it off the table. That was a mistake on my part. I should have run the Charger with the person somewhere safe, swapped over to a mech that would not have mattered as much, and gotten it off the table. Because I had an undamaged Charger C that left the board on turn 2. Well, turn 3 actually, because it took a little bit longer to get to the edge. So, anyway, that was a mistake on my part. Then we essentially had a knockdown, drag-out fight over one of the objectives. I totally ceded my left side objective. There was no point in trying to get it. Let my opponent have it. They got 1, 2, 3 people off the table, and by the end of the game, the only mechs left on the table were the Mad Cat, which was too far away to do anything, the Vulture, which found itself in a fight with the Marauder. And the Marauder had a wonderful time destroying a bunch of other mechs. Like, it earned a status in one game, but it was doing the work. And of course, at the end of that, the Marauder did go down with the Vulture only having 1 pip left. My hope was to take the Vulture out, so they at least did not get a full win, or most of a full win, and hopefully to give me slightly better odds at having the governor, or denying it to both of us, because he could have still been in one of the crashed helicopters. So game 5 did not go nearly as well as I had hoped. And then finally, we come to game 6, the last game of Southern Assault, the last game of the day, and Yeah, this was interesting. So my opponent was playing a Hell's Horses list, a Blood Asp G at skill 3, a Gargoyle D at skill 3, a Firemoth P at skill 3, a Balius C at skill 3, a Puma S at skill 3, a Svartalfa 3 at skill 4, a squad of Elemental 3 Battle Armor AP Gauss Rifles at skill 4, a Barak Fast Attack or Fast Battle Armor at squad at skill 4, a Hephaestus Scout Tank Prime at skill 4, and an Epona Pursuit Tank E at skill 4. Alright, and Hold the Line is one of the weird scenarios because the way it works is that each of you are trying to keep your opponent from crossing the table. Okay, fine, kind of interesting, but we can work with this. So the way the table was set up, there was essentially a courtyard in the middle of an urban area. Neither of us wanted to take each other head on right then and there. You know, it was sort of a, okay, let's kind of work around the middle of this table. And we did, and we ended up not shooting at each other until turn 3, and it goes 8 turns. So by turn 3, we have both switched sides of the table. I am now on his side, he is now on my side. That's when it just kind of went crazy. So it was like we both turned in on each other and decided that that was the moment to fight. And both of us did roughly equal losses to one another and were able to get a draw out of the game. I have to say that my opponent was probably not I don't know how to put it. My opponent continually misgendered me, and when I corrected them, they acted surprised that, you know, I did not want to be called by the wrong gender. Other than that, I mean, the game was okay. They did forget to declare which dice were their heat dice on the Epona one time, but that was like no big deal, whatever. And quite frankly, it was a weird game. And I say that because of the whole, like, neither of us wanted to engage at first. It was like, okay, we're all just going to cross the border. We're going to cross the middle of the table, go in each other's areas, and then let's go ahead and beat the snot out of each other. So that led to an interesting dynamic because neither of us really wanted to give up the ground either. So, like, we didn't want to come back over and fight one another, which was just weird. So that ended my Southern Assault tournament journey for this year. I have been toying around with the idea of just coming back in a support role, doing podcasting, being a judge, all that stuff. And of course, we are going to be doing Western Assault this year, as well as next year, as well as Eastern Assault. I know we have one for all 4 of the corners now. Western Assault is going to be in Los Angeles, California, and that is the tournament itself is on a Sunday, but we will be having events on Friday and Saturday as well at Strategicon, and this is President's Day weekend. I want to say that on the 15th, what was it? 15th, 16th? No, it's 14th, 15th, 16th? I can't remember. I'd have to look. But on one day, we're going to be doing the Alpha Strike Poker Run, which is a good event for new people. It's sort of like, gives you a little bit of grinder feel, but also something else other than just beating each other up. You then we'll be running Gridiron Giants as a standalone event. I plan on having 5 tables for that, so a total of 10 players. Teams will be pre-made, so players don't need to bring anything. So the first 2 events, nobody brings anything. I provide all of it. We have a good time, and there's a bunch of shooting at other mechs. And playing football with giant armored vehicles. Because, yay! Well, They're mechs, but still, they're giant armored vehicles. And then on Sunday, we have the tournament, which is a 4-round Alpha Strike tournament. So, talking about the tournament itself, Western Assault, we will be having as our first round the 3 objective games, strategic points. Round 2 will be Tactical Chaos, which is essentially King of the Hill. Round 3 is Did I Hear You Say Supplies, which is the oh shoot, my brain just totally left me. Which is the five objective scenario, and the final scenario will be Fight, because by then everybody's brain will be melted, and just pointing at things and trying to make them go away is probably going to be the easiest thing to do. Now, I do want to say that there will be some modifications. One of those is going to be on win conditions. The other of those is going to be on just general setup, and that's going to be Tactical Chaos. And the reason I say that is because Tactical Chaos, usually it's King of the Hill, but there's barriers around the hill. Since I don't want to try to get enough barriers to do enough 16 tables to be our maximum, I want to say. We can do up to 32 players. Right now the sign up is for 16. Oh, excuse me. Stupid sinuses are making me not be able to talk right again. But we are planned for 16 with up to 32. And I don't want to have to supply the barriers for that many tables. So it's going to be slightly different as far as how that's done. Of course, the finished rules packet will be released soon. I don't know exactly how soon, but it will be soon. So, there is that. And of course, Eastern Assault is one that I have not talked about yet. This is at the Richmond Open, which takes place in May. And that is also going to be a Southern Assault style tournament using that format, which is going to be the 375 points and is going to probably be depending on size, a 3 or 4 scenario event again. We're definitely not doing a 2-day at either of these, and I don't know how I've been convinced to run all this stuff, but apparently I'm just really crazy, and that's what I'm doing. So we are looking at 2 tournaments that I will be running next year. Also, I will not be taking a support role at Southern Assault 5. I had thought about saying, hey, Bobby, do you want me to go ahead and help with judging or help with any of that stuff? I feel like one more Southern Assault should be under my belt. And that one is going to be the swan song for me, as it were, with Southern Assaults, where I bring a list that is not themed. It is not anything other than what I want to bring. So hopefully that is going to be something that I get to do. And a lot of that's going to depend on how things look in a year's time, because a lot of changes may or may not happen. And we are in interesting times, to say the least. So that's it for everything. I want to thank my wonderful sponsor, Fortress Miniatures and Games. Thank you for running the event. Thank you for being there as my sponsor and helping to make this possible. Also, I want to thank all of my patrons. All of you helped to make this possible for me, and I really do appreciate it. And that is it for today. I will be releasing a actual podcast episode before the end of the year, and that will be covering the Catalyst price changes. And I had it mostly written, and of course with recent events and not political plans, but economic plans, I have to write a whole nother section to it, because if things go the way that they're supposedly going to go, then there's going to be some pricing issues that we're going to have to address. And that's not just for BattleTech, that is for the entire tabletop gaming community. So that is it for today. I hope that y'all have a great day, great evening, great whatever it is where you are. Also, before I go, if you like this, please hit the like and like button. If you want to get more, hit subscribe, and you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/Unicorn Company. This is Carrie, signing off. I want to thank all of our patrons and sponsors. Starting off, we have at the rank of Captain, Sarah. Then we have our Mercenary Review Bonding Commission representative, also known as our sponsor, Fortress Miniatures and Games. We then have our lieutenants, Boy in a Box, Haley, and Nathan. Our sergeants, Blind Zen Archer, Gus, Faz, and Steven. And let's not forget our cadets, NB Kaiju, Jamie, and Scott. Thank all of you for supporting the podcast and the channel. And if you would like to support us, and you can go to patreon.com/Unicorn Company, where we have a number of tiers. One might just fit you. So thank you all very much, and have a good day.